Welcome to the Legal Advice in Paradise podcast, brought to you by www.legaladviceinparadise.com. Even in one of the most beautiful places in the world, life can be litigious. On this podcast, the best and brightest legal minds gather to help you navigate your way through every legal question you may face. This program will help you know your rights, know what steps to take, and help you find the best legal representation, all in simple, easy to understand terms. And now, here's your host, Justine Gronwald.
Aloha, and thank you for tuning in to our next podcast episode. Want to make sure you never miss an episode, as well as get tips on how to hire an attorney and be eligible for monthly prizes? It's easy. Just join our free membership called the Agent of Change membership. Text your name and your email to area code 808-670-3400. Make sure you text back agree. And also, to check out our past episodes, just log into www.legaladviceinparadisepodcast.com. Now enjoy the next episode. Aloha. Aloha, Agents of Change. This is Justine with Legal Advice in Paradise. And this is our first podcast broadcast outside. We're at the beautiful Kahala Hilton. Is it the Hilton anymore?
The Kahala Resort and Hotel,
Yeah.
or Resort and Spa, or Hotel
Okay.
and Spa.
Well, it's
The
a
Kahala.
gorgeous place, and my special guest today for Witness Wednesday is Mr. Paul Klink, and just say hi for now. And
Aloha, Justine. Aloha, everyone.
The reason we're here today is that I did a podcast episode with attorney Scott Makuakane, and he told us the importance of setting up estate planning, which goes along with a will, correct?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So important.
And I brought Paul here because he had his own personal experience of not having a will in place and how that affected him. And he's actually been going and, talking to personal friends about the importance of it. And sometimes it's falling on deaf ears. And thank you so much, Paul, for having us in a beautiful location to begin with.
Well, it's my blessing to be here with you. Thank you very much.
Okay,
Anything
so
I can do to help others.
Yes, so please go ahead.
My name is Paul Klink. Last year in February, on February 9th at the soccer championship at Waipio Stadium, my son's team was in on a wild card, Kalani High School, against the unbeatable Punahou. Punahou people are probably some of the most misunderstood people in the world. I can't tell you how humble and gracious the Punahou community, the Punahou school community truly is. You'll know why in a moment.
Okay.
So at halftime, my son was making the goals that were winning the game, and at halftime we were going to go to the restroom, and we're walking down the stairs, my wife and I, Hiroyo, my beautiful wife, and she's always in front of me or running ahead because she wants to get back at halftime for the game, and she was lagging behind. I looked back, I'm like, what's going on? Let's go. And she said, I don't feel so good. And I hadn't heard that from her in 18 years, ever. Never. She never had a medical problem at all. And I said, what's wrong? She said, I felt dizzy, and I looked down, her left hand and left leg were dragging, and I yelled at her, smile. And she thought I was nuts. Even the people sitting around her thought I was nuts. I said, smile. And she said, why? I said, just smile. So she smiled. Only half her face smiled. I think you're having a stroke, I told her.
Right.
She got mad at me. She said, take me to the bathroom. I said, no, you can be mad at me. I'm calling an ambulance. So I started hitting 911. I looked back, and she was really dizzy. So I picked her up, carried her down to the grass. I got a friend to sit back to back so she could sit comfortably. Waited for the ambulance because I knew they have a process if someone's having a stroke to flush it out, and she would be okay. By the time we got to the grass, she wasn't speaking more than a few words at a time, and they asked me if we should get Leo, and I said, no, I don't think we should, and
Leo's
Hiroyo
your
agreed.
son.
Our son Leo was the forward for Kalani and the team captain, and doing very well in the game, and there was nothing he could do about it, and we were pretty confident if we took him out of the game, it wouldn't be good for the team. And so Hiroyo gave me the nod, and we agreed, although she was kind of in and out at that point in time, to let him continue on in the game without knowing. So we surrounded her and the ambulance with parents so nobody could see who was going in the ambulance. Anyways, we took her to the hospital, and on the first CAT scan, we saw that it was a hemorrhage, an aneurysm. And I actually took a picture of that screen and sent it to a dear friend of mine, Ken, who was a medical litigation consultant, actually, a great resource for attorneys. And he called me back right away and gave me the news. He said she won't survive it, and if she did, she'd be mortally paralyzed and mortally had mental problems. But in those moments, she was still communicating with 1 or 2 or 3 words at a time. And I called and told them to rush Leo to the hospital. So after the game, they brought him straight to the hospital. So he had a few moments with her before they put her in a induced coma because they didn't want her aspirating on her own saliva. And
Induced coma.
yeah, so right before that, the last 3 words she ever said, she grabbed my hand and squeezed it many times and just said, "I love you." And I was able to share with her how much I love with her. And actually, the nurses had to make statements about that because there was a doubt of what she said. But everyone heard her say, "I love you," and I told her, "I love you too." More than words can say was our spiel. And we stuck by her side for 3 days, and it just got worse and worse and worse. She was an organ donor. Everyone, please be an organ donor. Go to legacyoflife.org and sign up to be an organ donor, or when you get your state ID or Hawaii driver's license or anywhere in the world where you are, please make sure you're an organ donor. That is such a blessing for your family. In the worst moments a person could be in, knowing that you can actually change the lives of so many people that will then survive. My wife's passing is allowing many people to leave hospice, to survive, to go back to their children. The woman who got my wife's eyes, I got a letter from her. She can drive. She has a driver's license. She goes shopping. The woman who got her lungs has many kids and was in hospice. I'm actually hosting a dinner with Legacy of Life to meet all the organ recipients. I'm hoping my son will try to come to that. But in any case, my wife passed away on February 12th, 12:30 p.m. Literally hundreds and hundreds of people from Punahou, Kalani High School, Kalani football and soccer, the hula halal, all my friends from the boys bunch, everybody was there. Literally hundreds and hundreds of people were there to support my son and I. I was in the throes of dealing with all of this. My father passed away in my arms when I was 14, so I'm in a unique position to have some insights on this situation, having seen what my mom went through from the moment my father passed away, all the way through the whole process of the distribution of the assets and the estate for our family, my mom and dad's family. And I remember how I felt.
Right.
At the time I was only 14, but everything went to my mom. I mean, what about us kids? And at that time, for some reason, my brain separated me from my mom. I don't know why, because she always took care of us. But for a couple of years, I really resented that she got everything. I'm like, that didn't make sense. Like, shouldn't half go to her and a third to my brother, sister, and I? Or how did that work? But I trusted my mom. It was our family's estate. It was uncontested. I could have contested it. I could have hired an attorney. Of course, I didn't. And it's worked out perfect. But I have a really good insight on how Leo could feel and how people around the situation could feel. So I had a will. I got through Barry Sullivan at Beckerton Lee Sullivan Dang, I think, with an associate of his. And Hiroyo, I thought, had a will. We talked about it many times. We had a very solid financial plan through Dave Livingston and some other associates, and Delane Sylvester at Small Business Accounting. So luckily they knew what the plans were and were there after she passed.
This was for your will.
For mine, and we had discussed everything in front of them for Hiroyo and I for our estate plan. So if one of us had, every time I've been resuscitated so many times, my health has been so bad, we've had to deal with this in the past. And luckily, every time somebody, Hiroyo or someone say, "What do you want me to do when you die with this?" I'd ask Hiroyo.
That would be directives?
Could be some directives for certain specific items to go to specific people, and also just in general, where did I want distributions to go? And at the same time, every time someone would ask me, we'd ask Hiroyo, so I knew exactly what she wanted, and I assumed that she had a will because we chatted about mine over and over, and she was going to do one as well. She is healthy as a horse, never had a cold. I mean, she was just always in perfect condition, so I'm sure she's like, I'll do it later, I'll do it later, I'll do it later.
She put it off.
She put it off. She didn't have a will when she passed away, which leaves everything open for interpretation. Other than statements from our accountants and our financial advisor and myself knowing what she wanted, people, interlopers, people who want to jump into our situation for their own reasons, although they might say the intentions are good, the reality is it was outside the law, it was outside what was supposed to happen. All these things are open to interpretation. So certain friends would come in and say, well, Hiroyo really wanted XYZ. Well, we all know she didn't, but they just make that up. And they try to fight for it with an attorney. We have to defend ourselves, and that costs a lot of money. Whereas if Hiroyo had a will, none of that could have happened. My son would know exactly how she felt, exactly what she wanted, exactly how she would want things to proceed after she passed if she had just written it down in a will. Unfortunately, she didn't have it in a will, so it's my word, the accountant's word, our financial advisor's word against strangers and family, quote-unquote, friends who are thinking they're trying to help.
Let me ask you this, Paul, because, I hear stories about this. How can people just come out of the woodwork and with nothing in writing, and you're the spouse, and then you have your son? How is it that they have this power? I guess they just hire an attorney, but how do they make it so difficult when they're not even related in any way? I mean, give me some clarity on this, because it's like, how can you just be attacked by all these people who are not even in a family unit is what I'm trying to figure out.
Exactly. In my situation, it was literally the perfect storm. My wife's friend, who was very clear about her dislike about me over the years, and very publicly in front of many people that came out of the woodwork to tell people, what she said about me and how she felt about me, got my son's proxy and hired an attorney for my son. My son never went to one of the hearings, completely declined any. He's 8. It was a perfect storm. She passed away 1 month and 1 day before his 18th birthday.
So you're still a minor.
He was a minor when she passed away, and during that month we tried to settle everything, but these same people were colluding with the insurance company. They were hiding documents, destroying documents, moving them around. Again, all this stuff comes out later, and I'm in the middle of mourning my wife.
Right.
I'm just doing the best I can to keep my head above water, but I did have insights on what to do because of seeing what my mom went through and knowing the steps in general of what I needed to do. I need literally seeing the CAT scan on the screen within 20 minutes arriving at the ER. I'm thinking to myself, I'm going to need help. I can't do this on my own. I need to get an attorney. My good friend, Mike Rudy is just an amazing attorney. When it comes to an estate, I can't imagine working with anyone else. Him and Paul Higa and his staff are just exemplary, and I hired them for Leo and I to help us with the estate. After Leo gave his proxy to someone else to hire an attorney on his behalf, thinking they brainwashed him and poisoned his mind about all this horrible stuff, and honestly, I made some mistakes in my life as far as perception and pictures and photos and situations that made myself, a target for those kinds of accusations, although they were baseless and unfounded and couldn't be proved in court, or they would have been. Every objection was declined. In reality, these people got my son's proxy and hired an attorney. And actually an attorney, and everybody involved in this situation, bar maybe one person, have been doing everything with the perfect intentions, and I'm so grateful for all of them. And even the main puppet master of this whole thing, which I'll leave her name out of it, I pray for her more than anybody because I want the spirit to come into her and show her not to be sociopathic, not to be so vindictive and spiteful for feelings that she has that weren't shared with my wife. The last 3 words my wife said in front of this other woman were, "I love you," to me. The last 3 words on this planet. We were best friends first. Period. We were homies. She was my mini-me. And we were co-parents for one of the best kids ever born. And in light of all the stuff people have done in my son's name, for me, I am so proud of him. He didn't just survive, he's thrived. Without the help of the 2 coaches that have been helping him and other family friends, there's no way he'd be at University of California, Irvine. Him and I went to a college tour of Cal Bap, which was an amazing school, but his dream and everybody's dream was to get him with George Kuntz over at UCI, and they made it happen. Without them, I didn't have the capacity to make that happen on my own. I was completely disengaged from everything at that point in time.
Right.
I'm really proud of my son, overwhelmingly. You see anteaters, zot, zot, zot. And people who've come out of the woodworks in confidence from his university, family, friends, even this person who's been orchestrating all this drama, they're best friends, have communicated with me in private and not so private ways, explaining to me what's going on in my son's life, keep me in the loop. Because even though he doesn't want to be my son, I'm never going to stop being his daddy.
Yeah, so tell me how, because a will wasn't in place and nothing was clarified, how this affected your relationship with your son, which I know was really, you guys were so close. I mean,
he's my life.
I've seen you in the Facebook. We bumped into each other.
At the airport with Leo and I.
At the airport. I was going to Florida. You were going somewhere.
We were going to New York, I think, at the time.
Yeah, and we bumped into Leo and
You can see
Paul,
how much he loved me.
And these guys are like close.
Yeah.
And so
he's my mini-me.
When you came up to me and said that your son hasn't spoken to you since last year, I can't imagine that. But because a will wasn't in place, there was no clarity. So
none. And they were able to go right for the money. It's like, your dad's going to take all your money. And that's what I thought of when my dad passed away. My mom got all the money. So I understand where he's thinking, where he's coming from. And I tried to explain to him, you're set. Half of everything's going to be, even though you don't need it yet, I'm going to put it aside for you. And actually, at the end, after the judge made all the arrangements and everything's done, it's exactly what I offered day one. It's exactly what I said would happen day one. Luckily in Hawaii, we have laws in place to protect the spouse when the other spouse passes away and somebody's interluding in the family or hiring an attorney to do something, there's a law called elective share. Thank you.
Elective share.
Thank you, Hawaii.
Remember that.
Yes. Well, remember to get a will.
Yeah,
if you have a
remember
will,
to get a will.
there's two ways to compel you: scare you or incentivize you. I'm doing both. Please don't do this to people who are left behind without a will. It's totally open to interpretation. Everybody can assume or guess or lie about what the person who passed wanted or wished for or was giving. And people left behind, I have no way of validating what Hiroyo told me or what we discussed. Thank God we did a lot of these conversations in front of licensed professionals like Billy Sylvester, Dave Livingston, whoever, to be able to have them explain what Hiroyo wanted. But even that, when people have their hearts set in the midst of all this mourning, people are... I remember when my dad died and how impressionable I was to listen to anybody.
Yeah.
You know, and so I
It's
understand.
a very tumultuous, vulnerable time.
Very vulnerable. You're very 100%.
Vulnerable.
Well, Leo was in a good way a mommy's boy. My job was to be hustling 24/7 to get those bills paid, and you know me, I'm hustling all the time. That rent was extraordinary, all the expenses, everything Hiroyo made, minus a very little bit, went towards savings for Leo's college and going to school. Praying he gets scholarships. There was going to be some expenses we'd have to take care of. That was our core plan at the time. And then when he went to college, we'd move into a smaller place and you know, basically head towards retirement. Well, with him, Leo is such an extraordinary kid, such an amazing human being, and the people who were trying to influence him, unfortunately, again, although they were very public about their dislike for me, they were very close to our family. And so in this situation, it literally was a perfect storm. He was 17, turning 18 during that month. And again, we have all the recordings and stuff. This person and this puppeteer's puppets, you know, circumvented. They colluded with the insurance company, a lot of crazy stuff, and it's all third-party provable. You heard the recordings, you know.
You shared that with me.
So it's non-disputable that these people were doing this thing. Well, unfortunately, we're doing it with my son. And what they did was, and again, I am so sorry from the bottom of my heart for anything I've done in my life to be perceived the way they tried to make people perceive me. But the fact is, they couldn't, none of the things they accused me of could they prove. And I was able to prove contrary, that most of the things they said were completely false. But I'm a socialite. I do hustle, and the way I do make money is I host events, and that precipitates a lot of photos. And
Right.
you know, and although I'm not a drinker, I do these events, and I'm out late every night doing those things, doing the accounting. But I was home every day. I had statements from the neighbors and the landlord proving that, because they were saying all these accusations came out. Well, all those things coming from people you trust so much. My son can listen to Dad,
Right.
who was the, you know, wait till Dad gets home. So of course I was the, you know, disciplinarian, and I'm a very controlling dad. I wanted my son to end up the way he is. Leo's, you know, there's people involved in Leo's life very intimately, even since we haven't been communicating, who have been coming to me on their own dime, flying here to let me know what Leo's been up to, and just going on and on about what an amazing kid he is. That's not by mistake.
Right.
If I was as bad as they said I was, and with
They
Leo as
wouldn't
long
be
as I
doing
was,
that, yeah.
Leo wouldn't be Leo. Leo's an amazing kid. You know, I am my mom and dad's son. I was brought up to be a gentleman. Leo actually wrote the rules of being a gentleman. I mean, Gentleman 101 is what we put Leo through. I remember one time some lady sneaked out of a door, and before Leo could hold the door, and I said, "Leo, hold the door." He looked up at them at 7 years old and said, "I'm sorry, I'm a gentleman in training." And so that was my boy. I mean, he's please and thank you's priority number one.
Right.
I probably should have focused a little more on the parental loyalty department.
Oh, well.
Oops. But in reality,
people got their claws into him.
instantly in the hospital, nurses were warning me about things that were being said to my son by this woman
In
and
the
her friends.
hospital?
As we were entering the hospital, she threatened me in front of people.
Wow.
Yeah, well, but she thought her best friend had a husband who's a philanderer and a bad person in her mind without knowing me. I remember when I was sick in 2002, she said, if I knew you were going to be this sick, I never would have introduced you to your wife. And I was like, God, I'm going to pray so hard for this woman. I really want peace and happiness to come into her heart.
Yeah.
Not just about me, but in general. I mean, I couldn't live if I was like that. Anyway, so, but even this woman, I'm grateful because in a sense, they've been able to accomplish things for Leo. The people Leo is living with now are very wealthy. I mean, their biggest decision in the morning, Maserati, Porsche, Range Rover, the penthouse, the whole 9 yards, and amazing human beings. They're so down to earth. They're so humble. and they've helped me so much to bring Leo up. His coach would call and say, listen, Leo's trying to do this and this, and I just can't get the message through this kid's skull on this one. She would help me get it through his mind. She helped me so much. But now she's been poisoned by this other woman, and now it's gone. I mean, that friendship's vaporized for now. But in any case, if Hiroyo had a will, none of this could have happened. None of it. Everyone would know the truth, her truth, in her own words.
And tell us how difficult, how simple, what's the procedure? I mean,
quick appointment.
What's the bare minimum that people should have in place? Say a married couple just gets married. I mean,
well, I marry people.
You mentioned
that I'm a pastor,
you
so
would rather have I
won't marry a couple that don't have wills already in
so
place.
So for me, that was
no, impossible. I wouldn't do it to them.
I never would.
You don't have a will now, probably.
Yeah.
You don't even get a will.
I don't.
Yes, I can't stress enough the fear side. If you don't have a will, the government and strangers are going to choose what happens with your money, not the people you love and care about, and that is not a good thing. More importantly, you can share how you feel. I believe in writing what are called passing letters. I learned this when my grandpa was in hospice, and I just thought it was such a beautiful idea that if you write a letter, maybe more letters than one. In my case, I wrote one for Leo to be given to him immediately on my passing, assuming I was going to die about 8 years ago. Another one when he was 18, another one when he's 21, and one when he gets married.
I think that's a great idea, and you brought up the point that they have to be age appropriate for certain things.
That's why I made multiple letters. You know, when Leo was young, he was 12. First time Leo saw me and I was supposed to die, my first heart failure, he was only 7. Wow. So I was really lucky to be able to explain to him the way I thought things would be for him after I passed in a real positive light. I said, Leo, you can only talk to me when I'm alive and right in front of you, but after I pass, you can talk to me anytime. Like the way we can talk to Hiroyo right now. Right. I'm sure Hiroyo's around here right now. Right. I keep our wedding rings. Ted,
I know, you showed
Pacific Diamond made a really cool pendant.
That's really cool.
Yeah, Ted over at Pacific Diamond Swiss Watch Exchange. She's amazing. Love great people. In any case, so she's always with me. She's around. I know she keeps an eye on him. Time and distance is a human control function. So in any case, yeah, I had letters in place, and I've been updating them regularly, especially in light of what's been going on recently, so that there were certain things Hiroyo didn't want Leo to know as a child because he wouldn't be able to handle it properly. And so instead of arguing about it, which we did a couple of times, especially when I had my heart failure in 2002, the only time we ever talked about even separating is when her friend said I was too sick to be her husband. It's the only time she ever even saw an attorney with that person's guidance. But luckily she came to her senses and we were able to deal with everything. And we were always in love. We're homies. We were always best friends first. And so, having an age-appropriate passing letter to your children so that you can give them messages you want them to know that can be delivered by an attorney at the time you determine, so they know how you feel about things. So if there's certain things you didn't want to share till they were older, boom, there it is.
So imagine your dad passed away so early. If he had that for you,
can you imagine?
Been a whole different. You would have a whole different take on the whole thing.
It was a miracle. My dad died suddenly too. No plan. We weren't expecting him to pass away when he did. So it's exactly like Hiroyo's situation. Except for there weren't any interlopers around trying to move in on his kids. Everyone supported us, brought us together. A lot of our family friends didn't appreciate my mom's lifestyle, didn't appreciate the way she lived her life. They were hippies. They were really cool and we had a very interesting upbringing, but full of love, full of peace, full of admiration. Every family has their ups and downs. Right. But everyone tried to make us closer and closer after my father passed away, knowing my mom would need support and they need us kids and them. Instead of in my situation, they did everything they could to pull Leo farther and farther away. And it's at that time of your life where it's like, screw Dad, I don't want to come home at midnight. Yeah. Well, then he can go stay at his coach's, and then she's supposed to keep him come home at midnight. I didn't know he'd end up moving in and leaving permanently, or hopefully not permanently, but for at least the last year and a half. But again, if Hiroyo had the will, had those letters in passing, so Leo, here's your 18-year-old letter from Mom. Here's a letter she wanted you to have. You're 18. Here it is. And then when he's 21, there's certain things we wanted to tell him that she did not want him to know at the earliest until he was 21. But of course, this woman went and told him the second she passed away and changed all the facts around. And it was been such an interesting situation not having a will that would have been avoiding all these heartaches, all this drama, any of the financial questions, all these things. None of them would have been even a question if Hiroyo had a will and these letters in passing and be an organ donor. It's the best gift you can give, not to the recipients, to your family. Because in your passing, those little glimmers of light are when you know these organs are going to be a living legacy in someone else that will survive in her passing. To know that I'll be having a dinner and sitting in front of people who would not be alive today if it wasn't for the organs that she donated.
Right.
And up to 55 people got different tissues and
Wow.
door organs and ligaments, tendons from my wife. And it's just such an amazing gift that she gave to the world in her passing. And it's a legacy for Leo and I. Even though Leo doesn't really want to be my son right now, it's not stopping me one bit
We're praying that
from being
that'll
his father,
change
100%.
Hopefully soon,
Yeah.
Hopefully that relationship will be patched together.
I hope so.
Good time.
I believe on attraction rather than promotion. I think if I try to jump into his life in a manipulative way, it'll push him farther away.
Right.
So for me, I'm doing the best I can to stay in the back, to not be intrusive, which is exactly what these people want anyways. They don't want me in his life. I want him to forgive these people later when he figures it out. That's my heart. I want. And number two, and I really want him to figure it out before. I've been in hospice many times. I've been resuscitated many times. I had a lot of heart implants.
I watched some of your. I watched your
TEDx talk.
talk.
Yeah. And I really want Leo to figure this out where he can still come back to me and I can explain to him that it's fine. I want him to know that whatever moment he wants to re-enter my life, time is irrelevant. From that moment, let's move forward.
Right.
I'm so proud of him. I love him to death. Nothing's changed on my side at all. Nothing. Even the things these people have done to me, very strategically, the things they said on social media, the things they've gone and told people, the lies they've spread, even though I proved their lies, even when they're calling me a liar, I'm still proving them to be liars. But then I ask these people to please forgive these people because they're under the influence of someone who needs help. So to me, if you have a will, you have your letters in passing, you're an organ donor, you are preparing yourself and your family to go through a normal mourning process.
Yeah, it's not the person that passes away; they're already gone. It's the one you leave behind. The people who are still alive that suffer the most. I mean, already you have to go through the grieving process.
Yeah.
But to throw this in,
Oh.
it's just a nightmare. And there's lots of stories, but not like I don't think I've ever heard such a dramatic one.
This was such a perfect storm. Literally going from Hiroyo passing to that next month. I mean, Leo gave me back the cell phone I lent him, and there's voice messages on there from the insurance company telling him how to circumvent me, how to avoid, how to come in after his 18th birthday, and mentioning this woman who's trying to do all this horrible stuff to me, which none of these people belonged in our family estate at all.
Yeah, that's
they weren't involved.
That's the craziness of it all.
Well, the insurance company, she knew somebody there, all this, but the things they're doing have ramifications too.
Yeah.
I mean, they're illegal.
Right.
They're felonious. I mean, and the statute of limitations is a long time. So I want everything to settle down. Everyone will be held accountable for what they've done, good or bad, legally, and it's out of my hands. That just handed that off to the attorneys and the law enforcement and Homeland Security and immigration, those people, because it's black and white. I mean, we were married, black and white. She was in love with me. I was in love with her. We were best friends, black and white. We lived for Leo. He was our number one priority, black and white fact. She did not want all the money to go to some 18-year-old kid. It was supposed to be held in the family plan, and distributed appropriately. And black and white
discussed
fact.
earlier, thank you for lunch, we discussed it during lunch, about how verbal agreements don't count. They don't hold water for anything.
They don't, but they can still hire an attorney and come in and contest the estate. Having I thought we would just go. I had to have an attorney. After Hiroyo passed away, I can't just do that stuff on my own. I hired a family attorney for Leo and I, who ended up just working for me because those people hired Leo an attorney with his proxy. And so in this case, people could make accusations that would affect the estate. They were trying to say I wasn't her husband. I'm like, well, here's the marriage license, and here's 18,000 photos from the 5 months before he's born till the day she passed away. They don't hold water, but you still have to pay the money to defend yourself against them.
Exactly, and that's the thing. I think I discussed one of my interviews with the attorney. It's like if you're being targeted as the defendant, you have to answer. It's like out of your control. And
it's so horrible. The things anybody can say anything, and they make up the most horrible accusations that then you have to get third-party people to prove wrong, which you can do. But this whole time, $300 an hour, $500 an hour. Even though some people are on pro bono, not all of them can be, and you have to pay all these expenses. And then you got to remember, like we were discussing, if you're talking to your lawyer, remember they're getting paid for that time
for
a lot.
Billable hours.
And I remember, and again, in my case, it was priceless because my attorney has some experience in this area. I mean, we don't have experience in spouses dying.
No.
I mean, other than watching what my mom went through, which is a leg up there, but I didn't know what was going on. It was unique that I knew literally within 20 minutes of being in the ER that Hiroyo needed long-term care or was going to pass away. I knew that within 20 minutes. And the person who told me I trust 100%. I had faith things might turn at some point, and I was praying they would as hard as I could, but it was against pretty much 100% she was going to pass away from. I knew that within 20 minutes. I took a picture of that screen. I sent it to my friend Ken. He called me right back and told me, best case scenario, she'll pass away. If she survives this, she will be mortally handicapped. And so I couldn't keep that out of my mind. So right away I started thinking about call Brad Coates, call Mike Rudy, get these people on my team, and Leo's in my team instantly to protect us and protect the estate. Instead of going home and seeing her cars missing, her computers missing, finding out people went to her bank and were lying to the bankers, lying to the Kaiser nurses.
They worked really fast.
Instantly, in real time. I was literally walking into the ICU. This one woman came into me right away and just said, I got you. I'm going to get you. The same person who told me that quote at the hospital about wishing, I never was with my wife. So
if there was a will in place,
never could have happened. Never could have happened. Also, having the will in place. So that's the fear side of it.
Yeah.
Let's go on the benefit side of it. Having a will, having the designations, having the passing letters, which are so beautiful to have for people left behind.
I love that idea.
It's an amazing. I love it. I love the letters I have for Leo, and they're with my attorney to be delivered at times I choose. And I update them because when I was going to send them as a teenager, is much different, or young teenagers, different than as a man now. But it's amazing to me that when you have the organ donation, you have the passing letters, you have the will in place, your family can just mourn, and that's what they need to do. It was so hard to mourn and talk about money. So hard to mourn, talk about, did she really want to donate this or donate that? So hard to mourn when people are coming at you saying, well, Hiroyo said this and Hiroyo said that, and they're things she would never say, ever. She is such the beautiful spirit and beautiful soul. Never said a disparaging word pretty much about anybody. Irony is that the people that are helping Leo the most right now, Hiroyo really didn't like so much. I mean, she wouldn't tell me in those words, but she would avoid, certain situations because they would say things like, oh, I want to adopt Leo, I want to take Leo. And you're like, why do they say that? He's doing pretty good where he is, It was hurtful to her, and I saw it as the humor it was meant to be, but it really rubbed her the wrong way. But in any case, I'm so grateful for these people now. Where else Leo could have ended up if that woman had done what she did and those people weren't in place to help him.
Right.
I mean, I would want to switch places with him at some point. Penthouse, exotic cars, beautiful college, amazing classes, amazing fellow students, some of which communicate with me confidentially. Hey, I know you probably wonder what Leo's up to, blah, 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 blah. I'm just so honored. I'm not being intrusive in his life. I don't try to look at his stuff. I haven't tried to get his phone number. I want him to come to me when he's ready. He's a young man. He's asked me to stay away. I'm staying away the best I can. I'm being vigilant. I have friends around him 24/7 anywhere in the world he's at, keeping an eye on him, which I would do no matter what. But personally, I'm not being intrusive. I'm staying back as best I can. Even when I try to help him from a distance, these same people are doing really weird things. I mean, just insane things. So for me, I don't want to increase the insanity around my son. He's 19. Let him be 19. He's in college. Let him be in college. Now's the time, is the F you dad time anyways, right? It's the time he needs to be on his own space.
Yeah, well, a lot of parents say that, but yours is just
it's forced.
More,
I don't have an option.
It's more.
It's been a challenge. And a lot of people don't know that. The assumption is everything's okay, because I speak about my son as if everything's okay. Because to me, on my side, I haven't instigated any of this. I've been a recipient of all of it, but how I deal with it is up to me. And I'm letting the bad stuff, delegating that to the attorneys and the law and the legal and law enforcement, which they'll act at the appropriate time. They're looking at the statutes of limitations, and on the very, very end of the statutes of limitations, that's when they're going to decide to do what they got to do. So in the meantime, we can just live our lives. I just want to be Leo's dad. I'm his dad. I'm a stepdad. I mean, she was 4 months pregnant with Leo when we finally started dating. We knew each other for a couple years before that. She'd had another relationship and got pregnant. And to me, it was perfect. I have horrible genetics. My heart sucks. My heart, my lungs.
Yeah, you inherited that gene.
But he didn't.
Yeah.
So he got all the goofy with all the health problems.
Yeah.
He's an amazing, amazing young man. His heart is as big as the world. And that is part of what made him susceptible to a lot of these things, because these were a lot of emotional accusations.
Yeah.
But the facts are the facts. He saw. Were we a perfect family? Is there such a thing?
No.
Did we have our ups and downs? Duh. Who doesn't? Is Dad's never home? Damn, he's never home. It's the dad's catch-22. Dad's never home. Dad's never home. He never cares about us. Well, the rent's paid. The food's on the table. You're getting your school supplies. You're wearing cool clothes. Who's paying for it? Mom or dad. And if it's dad, dad's gone. Or dad's home all the time. Oh, dad's always home. We never have any money. Which is it? I tried staying home once for 3 months when I read on his Twitter account, my dad's never home. I'm like, I'll be home.
Oh, my.
And then I saw on Twitter, dad's always home. He's driving me nuts. You can't win. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And so
It's just that age.
it's that age. But he even did that age perfectly. He was a perfect baby, perfect kid, slept all night, just an exemplary human being, which made him susceptible to these people who had
Right.
influence over him.
Right.
So the fact that they accused me of things, a lot of which were lies, there was enough truth to make the lies almost believable. The fact that he judged me the way he did and pulled away from me proves I brought him up right. Because if those things were true, holding me accountable for those things as a young man would be okay to do. To go to the extent they went, maybe not so much. But I totally get that, if I've heard over and over and over, even from some of the people who were adversaries, that if everything was true, they're still shocked about what happened, that he pulled away as much as he did. If she had a will, that could not have happened. If she had these passing letters, none of it would have happened. It would put everything in context.
Would you recommend people before they even think of marriage to talk about a will? Because
Absolutely.
when you're young, you don't think about death at all. You're young. You're gonna live a long time, and time just flies. And then with your wife, it was so sudden. I don't think a lot of people in their marriage arrangements say, okay, part of us getting married, let's get a will. I mean,
They should already have a will before they go to the marriage. I started my will when I was 14 years old in 1979. I had written a full will and testament at 14 years old.
Wow.
I watched my dad die. He did not have a will. And I saw some of the questions and the questions I had that would have been gone if I read it from my dad's own words. If Dad said, Mom gets all the money, what would I say?
Now let me ask you this. I know you're not an attorney,
No.
but you've been through a lot of things.
Yeah.
Say somebody just wrote something without an attorney. Does that hold water, you think?
It would be better than having nothing, but I recommend going online to one of the legal websites or going to a local attorney. It can't cost that much
Yeah,
money.
I think
It's so
I think
priceless.
using an attorney would be, because I talked to one attorney and he said, every state has their own
Yeah.
statute, so you could get it off online, but it may not have the statute appropriate
be filed,
for
yeah.
for the state.
It can be.
So the best
Even
thing
at 14,
to
I
do,
saw a lawyer.
The best thing to do is. If you have to invest a tiny bit into this, it's better than what
it's
you're
priceless.
going through.
And everybody who dies without a will, first of all, you have probate. All the money is going to be handled by someone other than you. Period. When you have a financial plan in place like we had, where of course Leo's both of ours beneficiary, at 18 we'd change it, right before he turned 18, literally within 3 weeks of when she passed, we had an appointment to change everything.
And she passed.
She passed. And so to him, at 17 years old, he's a beneficiary of everything. They're saying, your mom only wanted you as a beneficiary. Well, that was our plan until he was 18. What 18-year-old would you trust with that kind of money? We would never do that to Leo. It wouldn't be fair to him. So we had a plan to change everything to make each other a beneficiary at 18, before he turned 18, which we didn't get a chance to do. What was already scheduled with Dell. There's no reason to wait ever to have a will.
Okay.
At any time you have anything, why not have a will? If it just costs a couple bucks, a couple $100, whatever it is, if you pass away and you don't have a will, no one has control over your assets but the government. Why would you want the government handling your estate?
Right.
Why would you leave your family and friends in limbo about what you wanted? When it would just take one appointment and a couple $100, maybe 2 appointments. And the benefits of that are allowing your family to mourn, avoiding any conflict in your family, avoiding any misdistributions of your
at least
assets.
minimizing it at a very.
Now, if you have
at
a will,
huge
what your will is your
Yeah.
will.
Yeah.
It says where to distribute it, where the money goes, how it gets there, who holds it, how is it managed. All these things can be predetermined. If you're a teenager and you're watching this, why not make a will? Why not? There's no reason not to. I can't imagine one reason in the world why you wouldn't want a will. And unfortunately,
I think what happens is, as humans, as mortals, it means death. So I think
just
the fear
especially in the
factor-
culture here in Hawaii.
I think the fear factor is in there, but we're talking about it.
But
You're
it's
gonna die.
such a beautiful thing.
When I did my interview with Scott Makuakane, I said, who needs an estate planning or will? He goes, well, and he one of the things he said is if you're gonna die.
that's everybody.
That's everybody.
One thing we all have in common: the permanent
Yes.
equalizer.
Right.
We're all born, we all live, and we're all going to go away someday.
Right.
I call it upgrading to life 2.0, the upgrade. Well, I know in this case, for me, that everyone I talk to, every time I know what pain her not having wills caused me in the last year, and was allowed to be used to cause pain in my son's life. Whereas if it was in my wife's own words, nobody could be judging me for my lifestyle. Nobody could be judging me for who I spent time with or didn't, what arrangements and agreements my wife did or didn't have, where she did or didn't want her money. Trying to sitting in a courtroom with a complete stranger, my son's proxy attorney, who I'm sure is an amazing human being and a great man, accusing me of things that were just overwhelmingly horrible, although I proved them all wrong. That could not have happened if there was a will. We never would have been in that process at all if it wasn't for that will. To sit there and hear those things, to know that if you have a will, your family won't go through that.
Right.
Having a will, everything's going to happen the way you wanted it to happen. I understand having a will means you have to think about dying.
Right.
Guess what? That's something we all have in common.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, it's actually a beautiful experience. You can think about even little minute things. I wanted a certain magnifying glass to go to a certain friend when I die, because he always admires my jade-handled magnifying glass. It's worthless. It's priceless to them. When I pass away, what a shock it'll be when that package arrives in the mail. Or gets a call from my attorney saying, listen, we're doing the reading of the will. You're invited to come in. You're included in the will.
Yeah.
And he'll be like, wow. Oh my! I love doing that kind of stuff.
Right.
Certain things I get are certain things I have people admire. They might be really or especially for Leo. There's certain things, my watch, the wedding rings, other things that I have for him. Obviously, I can't give to him now in the space he's at, but I can hold and put it. It's in my will, so that when I do go, no matter where he is with me, he'll get those things the way I want him to. There'll be no question about what I felt, how I'm thinking, where I wanted anything to go. It's in my wills, it's in my letters of passing, and I'm an organ donor. Legacy of Life will be distributing my organs and whatever they can use to help other people. I know this, and it gives me a much better sleep at night.
Yeah.
Knowing that if you don't have a will, that your family will have to go through probate, they will have indecisiveness. No matter how close they are, money is divisive.
Yeah.
I've never seen someone passing without a will where money wasn't divisive. I can only share with you, having a will, having letters of passing, being an organ donor, alleviates all of that. It's all good, and it alleviates all the bad. So get a will. Just call any attorney. You have so many amazing attorneys in your podcasts.
Yeah.
I recommend Barry Sullivan. For estate, when someone passed away, Mike Rudy's the man. Paul Higa in his office. These guys, nothing is their first rodeo. He knew. He could tell day one. He said, "This is what's going to happen." And in retrospect, exactly what he said was going to happen is exactly what happened.
And when you look for an attorney, you need to find one that actually has done that area of practice.
Has to be a
because
specialist.
what I've heard is that some people will look for an attorney, and that attorney say, "Yeah, I can do that," and they don't have experience. They haven't, really delved in it.
Nope.
So you need to really, really do your research, your due diligence before you go with that attorney.
And like we were chatting earlier, even going into any attorney, take an hour or two on the internet and research what you're going to be doing. So you know the vernacular, you know the definitions, you know what to expect at a skeletal version, at least about what's going to happen. For me, calling Brad Coates, being a Boys Bunch member, and him saying, Mike Rudy, here's his number. I already knew Mike from Boys Bunch anyways, but wasn't sure what kind of law he practiced, and found out he is the expert when it comes to estates. And originally he was going to be Leo's and my attorney. And our first meeting was emotional, of course. My wife had just passed away. And then when I had to call him back and tell him about my interaction with my son and these interlopers that were, poisoning his mind and kind of brainwashing him, that he was just as prepared for that as he was for an uncontested. And he's like, yeah, I've had this happen a zillion times. It's not uncommon. Without a will, people who are, if I had passed away, the same thing would happen with my friends that didn't appreciate
You're
certain
a target.
things.
You're a target from anybody from anywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, that sounds so. When you told me the story, your true life story, it was bizarre that these people would just come at you at such a immediate force. I mean, your wife really wasn't gone yet.
No, she wasn't gone. It was 2 days before she passed away.
They were already planning this attack.
Kaiser Security came to me and told me that girl cannot be here anymore. She has to leave. And I defended her because I just said she's mourning her best friend passing away.
Right.
I didn't know she was doing all this stuff against me, and they kept warning me. One nurse had a little video on her phone, a conversation between this woman and my son, and I'm like, whoa, what's going on? And I asked him, he's like, no, she's just really sad, and I realized she's mourning my wife's passing.
Well, see, she could have done that all she wanted, because if a will were in place, you couldn't care less about that.
I don't care. Well, Hiroyo's words would have carried.
Yeah.
Leah would know how much he loved me, how much he trusted me, what our plan was. The plan was in place. The plan was for him and her or I, whoever was going to survive this continue, and it would be indisputable. When you don't have a will, everything is disputable. Yeah. And when you're a public person and you're doing good things for a lot of people, you're a target for whoever. Every time I do something for one nonprofit, literally other nonprofits get upset because the scarcity mentality is prevalent. I'm an abundant-minded person.
Right.
I believe there's enough of everything. God gives us more than we need.
I think a lot of entrepreneurs are abundant-minded.
And God gives us everything and more, more than we need. Well, when people are godless, especially from certain countries where, Christianity is not even allowed or present hardly half the time, it's all about the money. It's all about, being vindictive and spiteful and getting back at people for what you thought they were like or doing, instead of being forgiving, accepting, non-judging, and just, even though this particular person and the people she's affected to be against me, I pray for them every morning and every night on the edge of my bed. They're amazing people doing amazing things for my son. Are those things hurting me the way they're doing them? Yes. I can't control them. I don't want to try to control anybody. I can barely control myself. I just want to be in the light and be the best dad to my son that I can be. Even if he doesn't want to pretend he's my son right now, which can't change the 18 years of me being with him every day, or calling him at least every day if I was traveling, 100% attendance at every soccer game, which had to be proven to a court by other people. Because I was supposed to be this bad dad, and they're like, wait a minute, look at this photo albums. Every day there's photos. She's Japanese. She took pictures of everything. Thank God. Again, was I perfect? Who is? Right. Did I make mistakes? Did I fall? Of course. Was I in some inappropriate situations at some point in time, as other people could perceive them? I guess they can perceive them any way they want. Did I ever do anything but be a best friend to my wife? Never. Do I go through one day now without missing her? Never. Missing my son, that's what's getting me. Her situation was an act of nature and God. That's his plan. That's not my plan. I'm not here to judge that plan. I'm going to go through it as his child. I'm going to continue on. I'm going to be Leo's dad no matter what. He can't stop me from being his dad from my side. To know that everything that happened around my son was intentional, that hurts. I know God's supposed to not give us something that makes us, unless it makes us stronger. Right. But every morning I'm like, how strong do you need me to be?
That means you're really strong.
Well, I have a lot of experience. I do life coaching, and I know I'm doing a ton of bereavement life coaching because people who know the truth, and there's very few that really know what we're talking about today. It's shocking to them. They have no idea because
when I first heard
I love my son.
It's very shocking.
Yeah, I'm in love with that kid is everything to me, but I realized. And I was prepared already for him to go away to college. I was prepared for him to do what kids do when they go away from college. Bah! Don't check on me. I'm at the dorm.
Right,
sure.
right.
I was kind of prepared for that already, but just not being the guy he calls when he has a question. Not being the guy that would be called if something went wrong. Not being the person they would rely on and trust for his best interests and decisions. Those are the things that make the most. Why did I fight against them and their attack on the estate and just let them have all the money is a question I thought of answering in that wasn't our plan. And if I just kowtowed and rolled over to these people, these interlopers that were not part of my family, ever. Their last name's not Clink. They're not related to us by any blood at all.
That's what gets me.
Nothing stops them from doing it. And Will would have stopped them.
A will. That's
so,
what we're trying to drum into your head right now.
Knowing these people did this intentionally against me is not an act of God, I don't believe. It's not an act of nature. Her passing was. These people deliberately, sociopathically, and very evilly coming at me, deliberately and saying things about me publicly, have been very, very, very hurtful. And I see them as someone of acting in something against what God would have wanted, honestly, in my personal opinion.
So you need to protect yourself against these type of forces, these types of people.
Absolutely, 100%.
And, it doesn't take much.
No, one appointment. It took me one appointment with Barry Sullivan, with one of his associates. They said, what are your assets? And mine are pretty meager. That's all. What do you want certain? And it could be like, I have a book of matches from Frank Sinatra's house, from his 75th birthday party. I want that to go to my aunt. I know how much she wants those matches. So in my will, someday, if I pass before she does, she'll get that phone call.
And she's going to be tickled pink.
She'll be really, really happy. And there's a good chance she'll listen to this, so the surprise will be gone. But I'll tell you, she'll be really, really happy. But the important things to me are things I want Leo to have, things that were meant for him to begin with. But yeah, I was never going to not fight for the truth. I was never going to not fight for what Hiroyo and I wanted. I was never going to let these people say the things they said about me going undefended. Like you said earlier, people can accuse you of anything. Oh, yeah. You have to defend yourself.
You have to answer.
And it's expensive in time and legal fees. Even if certain attorneys are pro bono, there's certain costs you have to cover. And they're tens and tens and tens of thousands of dollars.
Right.
And it's a sad thing because that's just taking money out of Leo's future. I don't seem very affected in that most of the money was taken away. unfortunately, it was money being put aside for him. Now I just have to worry about making more money in my life somehow to build a bigger nest egg for him for when I pass. He is my son. He is my legacy.
And aside
Nothing
from
will
all,
change that.
aside from all the money, it's the emotions, the division that's happened.
It's the division.
more than
They
anything.
shielded him from almost the entire thing. He gave them their proxy, and he was off living his life, doing his thing, and they were doing everything against me behind his back. Honestly, I don't believe he would have let them say everything they said if he knew what was going on. And the second my attorney mentioned anything about deposing Leo, it all ended instantly. Like, bring Leo in, have him accuse his father of these things. If you're saying he's
Wow.
accusing me of those things,
That's-
have him tell you what he believed his mom really wanted. And they're going to say he didn't want to put him through that stress or whatever.
Right.
BS. They didn't want the truth to come out.
Right,
And so,
right.
because the truth, Leo was there every day. Did we ever argue like normal parents? We never raised our voice to each other. The entire time Leo was alive, he never heard a loud voice. He never saw someone inebriated or altered in any way, ever. He saw us as a loving couple. And even when we had challenges, we did everything in a light of whatever's happening. It's not you against me or me against you. It's us against the world. And Leo is our number one focus for all our love. Period. End of case. There's no one could dispute that. There's not one soccer parent that they all saw me at every game, holding hands, yelling "I love you" to Leo, to Hiroyo, to Leo and I. I mean, everyone saw that every weekend. For 12 years, Leo's entire soccer thing. Who was there the night she passed away? If I was that bad of a dad or husband, why was I sitting in front of her on national television? You know, as everyone saw, triaging her and waiting for the ambulance. Why was I even there then? If I'm that bad of a dad, you know,
Right.
why are there tens of thousands of photos of us as a family all over the world? If I was that bad of a dad, you know, you can't hide something as bad as they tried to portray me. That much. I mean, no one believed it, and it was proven to be untrue. But that would never have had to happen.
If you
It had a will.
We're
Get
gonna
a
sing
will.
that. Get a will.
1, 2, 3. Get
Get
a
a
will.
will.
Please. I call it OPM, not other people's money, other people's mistakes.
Yeah.
My wife, the only error that I even can think of, would not having a will in those letters that would have protected me and my son from these people being able to come in and be interlopers that are completely inappropriate in this situation, supposedly defending my son against me when I'm the only person on this planet that would drop everything in a second for my son. These people have their own children. These people have their own families. If something's in trouble with Leo and they're already involved with taking care of their own kid and something happens to Leo,
And you know,
I'm here.
let me tell the listening audience how much he wanted this message to go out, because just prior to us getting together for lunch, you got into a car accident.
it's a major car
And you
accident.
know, I told Paul, I texted him, I said, you know what, if you want to do this for another day, we can do it for another day, but you know, this means so much to you to get the
I'm
message
going to the
out.
hospital after we're done with this interview.
He's got the headache going. What else do you have? Your
My
ankle.
back, my ankle, my
back.
I hyperextended
And,
both my thumbs.
And then, you know, he's going
But
back
look,
and
the
forth.
kid that hit me is okay. I'm really shocked how well he did.
Oh, and he said the airbags.
The airbags all blew up and everything, but he
Yeah.
did really. I think tomorrow he's going to be really, really sore.
And you know, Paul, you know, prior to us even getting on the air here, he's like talking with the insurance company,
Yeah.
and I'm like, I wonder if this is the right time to do our podcast.
Oh,
But
absolutely is.
So
It's got to
I
do
thank
it
you
sooner
so
the better.
much.
If one
And-
person
and
goes out and gets a will, we will accomplish some
Yeah.
beautiful thing today.
Yeah, and
If
we
all
hope-
of you get wills,
we hope everybody does.
wills, those letters of passing.
Myself
You're
included.
going to get a will.
Because my daughter's 12, my son's 33, and that would be so great if they had.
I still can't
something
believe you
like
have a
that.
son 12 years old. But yeah, I please get a will. Please go to legacyoflife.org and register to donate your organs. At the bare minimum, get a will. Directives are really good to specifically send specific things to specific people. Doing those letters in passing to your family and friends and putting dates of when you want them delivered and giving them to your attorney, priceless. Priceless.
Great.
I learned about this from other people, and those letters, they'll mean everything in the world, and avoid any misinterpretations of your dreams and your hopes for yourself and your family and your friends. Even if you're not married, get a will. If you're a teenager, why not? There's no reason not to have a will. And talking about death in a sense of how you're going to help your family and friends deal with it in your passing is a beautiful thing. I know the Asian culture, talking about death is very, very bad.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the ongoing lives of the people left behind them,
Left behind, yes.
and make sure that they don't have to suffer in your passing any more than just mourning you to begin with. And
Well-
I'm doing this as a legacy to my beautiful wife, Hiroyo, and
Thank you.
I'm very, very
Thank
fortunate.
you for filleting yourself.
Yeah.
I know that parts of this, you know, it's really hard for you.
Yeah, very difficult, but it's the truth.
It's pretty fresh, and the battle's not over.
No.
And
But in our prayer before this
yeah.
is that nothing but truth and love would come from our
Right,
mouths, and I
right.
believe that's
and
true.
I thank you for praying over, for those of you who don't know, I usually pray with our guests prior to getting on. I know some of you are not believers, but that's okay. We just want to make sure that we're guided in the right way and say the right things so that you are affected in a positive way. And I thank you for affecting us
thank
positively.
You. You're a steward of these listeners, and I appreciate being invited.
Such a great story. I mean, after we get off here, you're still not done with this battle.
Oh, this will be going on. My dream solution is that this woman, who the key puppeteer, will accept whatever she needs to accept from me. She's from Japan, and in Japan, after you surrender is when they attack. And so after I said I was sorry for the things, some of which I didn't even, I was contrite, I was sorry that she perceived the way she perceived, that's when she really went after me.
Wow.
And so I'm praying that the light will shine in her heart and mind, and that she'll reach out to me at some point in time, and we can make amends between us, because I don't need to forgive her. I've already forgiven her. She's doing what she believes is right for her. I have no way to judge that. I don't want people to judge me. Why should I? People in glass houses shouldn't throw stones. My house is glass. I'm not throwing any stones at anybody. Even these coaches who've said horrible things and caused all kinds of problems, I love them to death. They can't stop me from loving them. They've helped my son so much. I'll never be able to repay them, ever. What little monies I may end up with the estate, of course I'm going to be a steward of those funds. That's my family's money. But what I do with it would have been my business, not everyone else's, if she had a will.
If she had a will.
And my son would know exactly how she felt about me and exactly what she wanted for his future and exactly how she saw him and I proceeding in our lives as father and son. And at 21, I would have had that conversation I promised with her I'd have. If she wrote the letters in passing and had a will. Please, thank God she was an organ donor, and that was a beautiful, having the Legacy of Life people in the hospital with us was such a beacon of light in such a dark situation.
Yeah, so what I'll do is I'll put the references into
please,
all. We have
link
our
it up.
Agent of Change members who get an email with every single episode. I encourage you to become an agent of change, and the information will be on this podcast.
Great.
But become an agent of change, because in
Yes,
it
I
has
join.
the resources of the numbers you can contact, like the organ, and some tips.
I can give you samples of letters in passing if you want to put up there. And also, anybody, the link livealoha.org goes to the TED Talk if anybody wants to watch it.
We're going to get all of that for you guys.
Sure.
So, again, I just want to thank Paul
thank you.
much for coming here, even with the car accidents.
I'm going straight to the hospital after this, honestly.
And and how we end our episodes all the time is we shaka out for the video so people can see.
So shakalaka ding dong.
Yep. And then the audio we say aloha and ahui ho.
Aloha and ahui ho. Live aloha.
Live aloha. All right. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to the Legal Advice in Paradise podcast. For more information, visit www.legaladviceinparadise.com.